So Feng Shui is about your relationship with your environment and your surroundings and how you can elevate the energy in your surroundings to create the optimal flow of energy. And that helps you in terms of your wealth, health, and harmonious relationships.
You're listening to the She Renovates podcast. You're listening to She Renovates, the podcast for women who want to renovate to create an income and a life they love.
Hello, everyone. We're back with another episode of She Renovates, and I'm here with Jane Langof. Is that right?
That's correct.
Beautiful. And she has a business called Feng Shui Concepts. I hope that I'm pronouncing this correctly because I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone. And so Jane and I met at She Renovates Live, and it was quite fortuitous because I understand the importance of Feng Shui for certain markets, and I felt that there was a need to explore it. And so guess what? Jane's here to share her wisdom.
Yes.
So welcome, Jane.
Thank you. It's so great to be here, Bernadette.
Amazing. So can you just tell us a little bit more about you?
So I'm an internationally accredited Feng Shui master and designer, and I love helping people create beautiful homes with positive energy that are also worth a lot of money. So I work with property owners, developers, commercial business owners. I work with government as well for community spaces, and also for managers of casinos and resorts and people in the hospitality industry. So my work is very far ranging. The thing I love doing the most is working with homeowners, or property owners who are looking to create spaces that radiate abundance from a Feng Shui perspective.
Amazing. Now let's get the pronunciation right. It's Feng Shui.
So there are a few different ways of pronouncing Feng Shui. So I say Feng Shui, you could say it Feng Shui, Feng Shui, Feng Shui, depending on which region of Asia you're from. I like to, to make it easy for people to remember, Feng Shui is a really easy way to think about it, like it's a fun way of working with Jane.
Amazing. Well done. So I'm going to try and remember it as Feng Shui because that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And so I know, so there's two questions I want to start with. One is sort of a short version of the origins of Feng Shui. Start with that and I'll come back to the second question.
Yeah, we'll start with that. So Feng Shui is about your relationship with your environment and your surroundings and how you can elevate the energy in your surroundings to create the optimal flow of energy. And that helps you in terms of your wealth, health, and harmonious relationships. So Feng Shui has been around for thousands of years, like 5,000 years plus. Ancient Chinese masters discovered that the different patterns of energy affected the human body and mind. So when people were aligned with positive energy, they experienced periods of great fortune. Whereas if they were aligned with negative energy, they experienced obstacles and misfortune. So from these observations over thousands of years came a defined set of rules, guidelines, mathematical systems, and formulas that sort of form the basis of traditional Feng Shui today. So as I mentioned, Feng Shui has been around for ages. In the 70s, a simplified version of Feng Shui was brought out to the West, specifically to America. And this simplified version of Feng Shui suggested that there's a fixed map of energy, that basically everybody's home has the same map of energy based on where your front door is located. And this is a very simplistic way of looking at Feng Shui, not based on the real sort of Chinese way of analyzing a space. And so it was brought out to make it easy to understand and digest, but it's not the real deal. And so there's a lot of misinformation, misconceptions, myths out there in internet land and in books and all sorts of things. So my main purpose is to get out there and talk about authentic traditional feng shui and not the crap that you see on TikTok.
Amazing. And so I've remembered what my second question was. So it's an ancient Chinese practice, but are there, like, I know it's becoming used commonly in Western culture, but are there other Eastern cultures that observe the principles of feng shui?
Oh yes, it's observed all through Asia. Even the Indian culture has a type of philosophy called Vastu Shastra, which some people believe that feng shui might have even originated from more than 5,000 years ago. And I actually work with a lot of Indian people as well who are very much into feng shui because there are some crossovers in those philosophies. But yes, it is definitely practiced all through Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, the Philippines, Hong Kong, Taiwan, everywhere, all over the place. Vietnam as well. I've got a lot of wide-ranging Asian customers, but also actually most of my clients are non-Asian. With the booming wellness industry, what I found is that people are just interested in more gaining more positive energy for their families and for themselves, and feng shui is very much aligned with that booming wellness sector.
I'm going to ask a question which I think might be oversimplifying it, but I'll ask it anyhow.
Sure.
So, is it safe to assume that the majority of, in particular, Chinese people observe the principles of feng shui?
I don't have the stats on that, but it's something that's deeply ingrained in the culture. So what tends to happen, I find, is that sometimes the younger generation might not be into it when in their youth, but as they get older and start settling down and start buying properties, then this sort of stuff tends to come out, especially because they tend to be very much influenced by older generations. And so, the mum or grandparents might come over and say, "Hey, that this doesn't have feng shui, good feng shui. What are you going to do about it?" Or when they're looking to purchase a property and getting feedback from family, then that sort of thing comes out. But yeah, I would say that there's a great percentage of Asian buyers, property buyers, and people out there who homeowners who are very much into feng shui. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so now, can we sort of talk about the principles of feng shui? And I'm thinking, what are the fundamentals, the must-haves, and then is this how it works? The must-haves and then maybe the nice-to-haves?
Yeah, that's right. So, well, feng shui, the principles of feng shui is it's about yin and yang, balance of yin and yang. So we're looking to balance the energies in particular ways. So if I can just explain, I'll just explain a little about what I do with the process. So when I go and analyze a property, I'm looking at I calculate the energy map of the building. And so the energy map tells me where the positive and negative energy sectors are in relation to wealth, harmony, relationships, and so forth. And so this is like the energy map is somewhat like a horoscope that tells you how supportive the building is for the occupants in the home. And it's based on the orientation, the precise orientation of the building to the degree, the floor plan, and also when the building was constructed, and also the birth data of the people that are living in the home. So all of those factors sort of come into play when it comes to determining the energy map. And how we can maximize the energy in a home is through two ways. It's by arrangement and layout. So making sure that we're clearing obstacles, that energy flows really well, that the energy meanders through a space rather than moves too quickly in straight lines. And we also look to balance the intangible energies in a home, which is based on the 5 elements that are used in Chinese metaphysics. Chinese metaphysics being, like acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. So those 5 elements are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. and each of those elements relates to a particular color, shape, and material. So we're balancing the energies based on this energetic level and also on the physical level and what you can see. So the most important thing in terms of the people who are probably listening to this podcast and interested in property development and appealing to that Asian demographic are to make sure that the physical aspects are ticked off from a Feng Shui perspective. And so that's where we'd look at. We don't want to have the front door in direct alignment with the back door. We don't want to have the front door in direct alignment with the stairs, because what that means is that the energy is not contained and the energy rushes out too quickly throughout the home and is believed to have negative consequences on wealth and prosperity. We want things like a solid wall behind where the bed head is going to be, and not to have the meter box on the other side. Not everybody knows about this. This is more of a modern Feng Shui thing, but the meter box behind the bedhead wall is something that can impact on health. So, the other thing is having the door in a bedroom, the door in direct alignment with the bed, where the bed is going to be. We want to avoid that because that's known as the coffin position.
Yes, I've read about
Yeah,
that.
which doesn't necessarily mean you're going to die, but it means that the energy is rushing straight through to the bed. So there are things like that we want to kind of try and avoid if we can. If they and I know some people might be gasping listening to this and thinking, my front door is in direct alignment with the stairs or whatever. And there are ways to kind of mitigate and to slow down that energy flow. But the best, I get so many calls from people who are trying to sell a property in an Asian area, or they've been told that there's a problem from a Feng Shui perspective, or there's a real estate agent ringing me up, and it's far easier to deal with these things when we're just looking at plans and lines on a page rather than when a building is constructed and we're trying to sell it.
Absolutely. So you shouldn't have the back door directly aligned with the front door, or the stairs, and the coffin position for the bed. The 5 elements: water, wood, metal, earth, and air. Is that right?
Fire.
Fire. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And so where do they come into it?
So that's really where a Feng Shui master helps you with that. So it's not something that you can kind of just do on the fly or DIY, because you can end up with a worse situation than what you started with. But water is, I'll give you an example. Like, water is one of those elements that amplifies energy regardless of whether it's positive or negative. So the placement of water features is really important. So we don't just want to place water around willy-nilly, because if you do that and then somebody goes and has a Feng Shui consultation and finds out that the swimming pool is in a area that, I don't know, that sort of amplifies the energy of sickness or obstacles or misfortune, then that's not a good thing. If it could have been placed somewhere else that was in a more prosperous zone. And fire is another thing. Like, we want to avoid large expanses of red in a property. So the color red is associated with that fire element. So there are it's very much every energy map for a home is unique depending on the on the situation and where the property is placed and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because so Stephen, my husband, was before he retired, was working on construction of large buildings, and one of the projects he worked on was the Chatswood railway station.
Oh yeah.
And so they basically built, so the railway ran under the building, and then they built apartments above the railway station. And I don't know why, but that they brought, must have been in the planning stage, the Feng Shui specialist was horrified that there was a train running in underneath, because apparently that was bad energy.
Yeah.
And the other thing, she talked about certain apartments in the building would have to be sold to an Australian or a European, because there was no way of resolving the Feng Shui issues in it. So is that a common thing?
It's something that comes up. So, for example, I received a call from uh, a a vendor trying to sell their home on a T-junction in Hurstville, and uh, didn't really know about Feng Shui being a thing, and like is really struggling. Has the agent that is selling property in the area for the record prices, and this agent like can't is struggling to really get the price that they want. So yeah, there's some places where you just won't sell to a feng shui conscious buyer.
So a T-junction's obviously bad energy.
Yeah, T junction is. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
And so would normally you assume that the energy coming in the front door was positive, was good energy, or
Not necessarily. It really depends on the surrounding environment.
yeah.
So it depends on what's opposite the door, and also based on this energy map. So in 2024, we moved into a particular 20-year feng shui cycle. And what this means is that houses that are on the north-south axis are the most prosperous for the next 20 years, which means that we're pretty much aligned with with what everyone wants, and that is to have a north-facing sort of sun to the living spaces sort of thing. So what that means is that the positive energy is more likely to be coming through the front door, and you can really harness that really good wealth energy. So that's another thing that we need to consider from a feng shui perspective, which is very important, is the path of the sun, and the orientation of the home in relation to that. And that's something that some feng shui people don't even kind of consider, because there's a lot of fixation on the formulas from a feng shui perspective, but really that the sun is so important, because that's where you gain a lot of the energy from the environment. So
And
making sure that you're capturing that northern light if you can is and and trying to deflect the harsh western sun is ideal.
wow. So as well, you may not know, we're in the midst of a quite an extensive renovation, and we live at a warehouse and it faces south. And for as long as we've been here, my husband has wanted to build a loft up the top so that we can capture the northern, because we've got windows right across the north, to capture that light and also the view, because we'll be able to see the fireworks on New Year's Eve. And so I'll be pleased to tell him that he has improved the feng shui of our house as a
Yeah,
result of that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great idea.
So when
And
someone, can
sorry,
I just say, I've been
yeah.
quite mean because I personally think it's a folly, because huge amount of money for about 9 square meters, but I think I can change my tune now. Sorry,
Well,
what were you?
it sounds like a good idea if you're bringing in all that beautiful northern light, and plus you're getting views. It sounds like a
Amazing.
win-win all round.
It does, yeah, yeah.
And if
I,
you're living in it and really enjoying the space as well, that's the main thing.
exactly,
So
yeah.
it's also about how you feel about your home and your space as well, and that when you walk in, you love it, and you're bringing that positive energy into the home. So also really important to know what was the history of the building and the occupants before you moved in there. Like the walls and the things in your home, they get like a type of energetic imprint. And so if you're in the divorce house, well, it might be something you need to look at from a feng shui perspective. What is the energy map of the home actually saying? There's
And
so much to it.
is there something you can do about that, or do you just have to live with
Yeah,
it?
there is.
Oh,
Well,
great.
that's where you can do a clearing. So you can use sage to clear the energy in a space. Sometimes you might even have a spirit in the home. So I deal with that as well. I deal with
Wow.
with when people have problems with spirits in their homes, I have a ghostbuster that I work with who will help me to clear those energies,
That's really interesting.
because that
So
can cause all sorts of problems when it comes to building and renovating as well.
I can
Cause,
imagine.
yeah, it can cause delays, all sorts of things. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
disputes, illnesses.
I wonder what the bad energy is we have at Potts Point, because I am definitely finding it's one of those projects that just keeps throwing up problems.
Oh, right.
Mm,
I'll have to get you on. We'll have to have a chat about
yeah,
that later.
yeah,
Well, Potts Point, these sorts of areas actually, they have so much history that there's a lot of sort of, could be a lot of earthbound spirits around that area.
yeah. I would imagine there
Places
would be.
places
Yeah.
like that, Woolloomooloo, Balmain is a big one. Balmain is full of spirits.
Wow. Okay. So we walked through a project recently that was the site of a murder in, it was outside the 7 years or however many years there are you need to declare it. But
Declare.
yeah, I don't know. It was sort of felt a bit eerie,
Yeah.
but yeah. So
Wow,
anyway,
I didn't realize that there was a 7-year declaration period on that.
I'm not sure it's 7 years, but the real estate code of conduct is that they need to declare if it's been in a time frame.
Yes.
So what are some practical things? So in terms of renovators, I'm guessing we do need to be careful of, when we're buying, but also when we're selling. So can you give us firstly, some practical things to look out for when we're buying
Yep.
and also, when we're selling?
Okay, so when you're buying, I would just look out for places that are on T-junctions. So T-junctions, because you've got the rush of energy sort of coming towards the home, that's kind of a known thing that you want to avoid if you're trying to sell in the Asian market. But having said that, you might get a bargain that way as
Yeah,
well. So it really depends on who the target audience is. We want to have a contained foyer in the front if we can, where we've got where the energy is contained in the front, and then you walk around to go to the next part of the home, so that there's a kind of unfolding of the experience of walking through a house, rather than you just open it and there's the view and there's everything, it's all out there straight away. So we want to have that meandering energy flow if we can. If we can't do that, we try and slow it down. So we also need to have a balance of openness and enclosure. So not everything open plan, not everything all exposed and open where, noise is just booming throughout the space. We need to have areas that can be enclosed. So, I mean, COVID was a good time to experience that, when people were trying to work in different places within the home. We also want to make sure that there's a balance of natural materials too. So natural materials, having things like lovely plants, good soil quality, being in a nice area that where people are looking kind of healthy, and there's a bit of an abundant sort of feeling about the energy, and there's some birds and some trees. That's also really great from a feng shui perspective. Water is one of those things that is associated with wealth. So in general, if you're around water, that's a great thing if you're close to water. And then when we look at water, we want water that's clean, not that's dirty and stinky, or like a stinky canal behind, or having, like you mentioned, that situation where the train was running directly underneath. So we want to avoid negative energies. So it's things like dumps or big power lines that could be creating electromagnetic field exposure. Um, yeah, even sometimes cemeteries as well.
well, it sort of aligns with general principles of profitability too. One of the
Yes,
things that I feel is really important about a home when you're presenting it is if you step into the front door, you sort of feel grounded. And I think that's the same sort of concept. Like I always like to have an entranceway and maybe have a table or a piece of art or something that has the visitor stop and sort of take in before they move on. And I think it's a very similar concept.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you want to be able to have a moment when you
Yeah.
walk into a space.
Yeah.
And not also the other thing I should mention, you made a good point there about having artwork opposite the door. We want something like artwork or a beautiful sculpture, a little table, console table with flowers
Yeah.
or something like that as a focal point to draw energy inside. We don't want to have a mirror directly opposite the front door because that reflects energy and opportunities back out again.
I've made that mistake a few times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about triangular blocks?
Yeah, triangular blocks, that's a very good question. Not ideal from a feng shui perspective because
Yeah.
it has it's an uneven distribution of energy. So the ideal block is something that's a regular shape. We also try and avoid battle axes if we can,
Yeah.
unless there are some people that like them because they need that privacy, like celebrities and so forth, that can't have anybody looking directly into their homes. But in general, we want to have a place where you can make the front entrance and the front of the home as appealing as possible to draw that energy in. But yeah, the triangular blocks are not good. The ideal is to have a block that's slightly wider at the back than it is at the front, because then that's shaped like a money bag. Whereas,
Really?
yeah, so there's certain symbolism and imagery that is great from a feng shui perspective. Oh, another thing that I forgot to mention as well is looking at numbers too. So the number 4 in Chinese sounds like the word for death. So this is not a feng shui thing. This is a Chinese superstition that's associated with feng shui and confused with feng shui. So I wouldn't say that to a client that if they're living in a number 4 home that it's got bad energy. It really depends on that specific energy map of the property. But what it does mean is that if you're trying to sell to that feng shui conscious market later, that there might be people who just don't want a property that has a number 4 in it or specifically ends in number 4.
I know
Whereas number 8 is a good number.
I was going to say that I've seen properties like 88 go for ridiculous prices because 2 buyers absolutely wanted it and
Yes,
because of the number. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. So what about with presenting your home for sale? So you don't, obviously you don't want a mirror opposite the front door. Are there any sort of obvious no-nos that renovators should know about?
Oh, let's avoid the plastic plants.
Oh, yep.
Better to have sort of natural, the real deal, real plants, real flowers rather than the fakies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just probably I would say I think the way that properties tend to be staged for sale is that people tend to use sort of the neutral natural palettes with plants and things like that. So I don't really have a problem about the staging from a feng shui perspective. It's really more about what you do when it comes time to build and design the home that has the biggest bang for your buck, rather than just trying to do a few things later. And I, the other thing that I would say is that those sort of tacky trinkets and ornaments, lucky ornaments and things, they're not really required from a feng shui perspective at all. I mean, if they mean something to the occupants, fine, that's fine, but they're really not needed. So when it comes to balancing the energies in a room, let's say for example, we need the metal element in a bedroom because there's an illness energy there, then I will say I'll bring the metal element in through a beautiful lampshade that might be metallic or round or white, because all of those things represent the metal element. So we can bring those remedies, those feng shui remedies, into a home through the use of design and beautiful design and decor that goes with the aesthetic of the occupant and the home and the surroundings.
I used to renovate in Beecroft, and I was doing this project which required fairly extensive internal renovations. And when I looked at the plans, the ground floor was gutted pretty much, and you could see it was very open plan, and you could stand at the front door and all across the back was multifold and glass. And in Beecroft, there's quite a Chinese contingent, and I didn't know much about Feng Shui, but I did know that energy in, energy out thing. And so I got the plans changed so that we no longer had that, like there was a staircase actually in between the front door and the back door, so that you had to go around, the energy had to go around. And so there's no science to this, but I sold it to a Chinese surgeon. And I believe that if we hadn't observed that principle, that we probably wouldn't have been able to sell to that buyer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So
that was a good move. And see, that's something that I don't know, did it cost you much to make that change?
to be honest with you, it cost us less, which would have been my
Wow.
other motivation, because
Yeah.
we weren't pulling out all the staircase, and so it was, a good move.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah. So how does a Feng Shui expert normally work with people in property?
So what I normally do is I will talk to the property owner or talk to the developer first, find out what the motivations are, check out the floor plan to start with, calculate what the energy map is of the proposed building, work out where the positive and negative energy sectors are and what arrangements and layouts can be altered if needed to sort of maximize that energy flow. And then I would work out what elements are required in certain spaces that to maximize the energy of wealth, health, harmonious relationships, and so forth. And from there, work out, well, what colors and finishes and particular materials are needed in certain spaces. I'd look at the layouts to see, well, where are the doors facing? You know, is the ensuite door in direct alignment with the bed, for example, because that's a feng shui no-no. So how can we make those changes if possible? So everything needs to also make sense from a design point of view. So we're not making changes with feng shui in mind just as a separate sort of thing. We need to look at the whole project. So need to look at, well, what are the other competing considerations, the budgetary constraints or whatever. So it might not necessarily involve potentially moving walls or doors or whatever. It might just be something that we're using feng shui remedies for to enhance that where we can. And then from there, I would talk to the client again to deliver my findings and then prepare a report that they can then use as in reference to then complete the plan. And then we might just go through a fine-tuning process to get that right and to maximize that energy where we can. So it's just about making the most of what you've got based on the constraints that you have.
Building. Yeah. So what's the most surprising thing that's happened to you in your work as a feng shui expert?
That's a very good question. What's the most surprising thing that's happened in my work? It's probably when I deal with people who have problems with spirits in their homes, and how that can make a big impact on the energy later. So, for example, I was dealing with somebody who was doing a renovation and just had all sorts of legal issues. They had 5 neighbors around them because of where they were located. There were 5 neighbors, and they had disputes with every single one of them, and had trouble with their reno. And then we got the place cleared out. Apparently there was some toxic energies in there from previous occupants, and a spirit or two. We cleared that out, and as soon as that happened, it pretty much just, those legal issues all just dropped. It was just quite incredible. So that's probably the most surprising.
That's I was going to ask you if you have any evidence of success in your work and how you measure it.
Well, with the success, the way I measure it is that I just get the positive feedback from the clients. So, they might give me a testimonial that says that they have experienced more, they have got more money after working with me, or that their relationships have improved. So it's really it's evidence based on feedback
Yeah,
from my clients. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we've, covered a reasonable amount of material in a short amount of time. If anyone listening would like to get in touch with you, how do they do that, Jane?
Well, they can contact me through my website, which is fengshuiconcepts.com.au. And I also have a book, which is called Feng Shui, A Homeowner's Guide to Abundance. And that has a lot of information in there about things to avoid, things to do within your home. It's got a room by room part in the book, where you step through different rooms of the home and talk about Feng Shui and how to maximize the energy within each space based on the layouts and arrangements, and explains the
Amazing.
process. Yeah,
Yeah. Might be an idea if we link to the book in the show notes as well.
sounds good.
Because thank you. You very kindly gave me a copy of the book, and I haven't got to it yet, but I'm getting there.
No problem.
We might do another episode when I've read it and I'm a little bit more informed.
All good.
Mm. Well, listen, thanks for being our guest, Jane, and thanks for, putting up with the irregularities of this recording.
You're
And
welcome.
This is the She Renovates podcast. To discover how to harness the power of renovating, check out theschoolofrenovating.com.